Stealing opera glasses put one thief behind bars.
John Keating had a long history of brushes with the law. In 1905, the youth was arrested for stealing beer, but after a month in prison, he was back on the streets. Soon after this, a 20-year-old Keating broke into a marine store and swiped a cash box, foreign coins, and a pair of opera glasses. Although Keating had 2 accomplices, his lengthy criminal record convinced the court that he was the leader of the gang, and he was sentenced to 6 months of hard labor.
London's slums bred criminals.
As conditions in London deteriorated, increasingly more children turned to a life of crime to survive. Charles Booth's poverty map of the East End captured the desperation, with the darkest color representing the lowest class. Occasional laborers, street sellers, loafers, criminals, and semi-criminals. Historian Nigel Green studied police records from the Victorian era and found that between 1838 and 1851, the number of children arrested for petty crimes more than doubled. Children with no other option relied on their wits and their criminal skills to stay alive.
5,000 prisoners were shipped to Australia.
In the early 1800s, there was no separate juvenile justice system, so everyone was tried with the same severity. Between 1801 and 1836, the criminal court dubbed Old Bailey saw 103 children aged 14 or younger sentenced to death. However, almost none of them ended up being executed, as their punishment was usually commuted to something less grave. In 1847, the Juvenile Justice Act declared that children under 14 should be tried in a separate court from adult offenders. While children were rarely given the death sentence, many were shipped off to penal colonies around the world, and by the 1830s, 5,000 prisoners as young as 10 were sent to Australia. In Australia, convicts might work on public projects or be given other manual labor tasks. Some even built prisons once they arrived at the penal colony.
The children believed stealing was morally just.
Stories of British child gangs play out like urban versions of Robin Hood, according to the children at least. In the mid-1800s, an investigative journalist named James Greenwood wrote that the children believed that stealing was morally just. They have an ingrained conviction that it is you who are wrong, not them. In the eyes of the children, their actions couldn't even be described as stealing, Greenwood reported. You are wrong in the first place in appropriating all the good things the world affords, leaving none for them.
Child labor was a popular alternative to child gangs.
Child gangs weren't the only problem in Victorian Britain. Thousands of children labored in factories and mines, often under horrific working conditions. On average, 19th-century British children started working at age 10, but even younger children were put to work in industrial areas. In 1878, the Factory Act banned hiring workers younger than 10, and the 1880 Education Act introduced compulsory schooling for children under 10. While both were an improvement, child laborers were still abused by employers and had few rights. However, unlike child gangs, child laborers were at least legally and gainfully employed.
Homeless child criminals lived in flat houses.
Early in the 19th century, a startling new real estate trend emerged. Reports started coming in of criminals who sold flash houses or stolen property to be used as cheap housing for child gang members. and other impoverished citizens. For many, flat houses were the only alternative to homelessness, and a single house often supported dozens of children who had no other option. The police called flat houses nurseries of crime, and in 1837 a police witness claimed that a house in London contained 20 boys and 10 girls under the age of 16, all living together. All the dwelling's residents were led by a captain and encouraged in picking pockets.
Young pickpockets were trained by adults.
Young pickpockets were trained by adults.
Children as young as 8 were sentenced to hard labor.
Children as young as 8 were sentenced to hard labor.
Hey guys, thank you so much for the support and likes and comments down below, and also thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to see you in the next video. Then take care, bye.